Hi, welcome back. I am the bookworm rabbit Laura, and today I'm going to talk to you about all the books I read in May. So, as always, to help me out, I have my book journal with me. So, let's get started. So, in May, I read 8 books. So, I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, Rent a Boyfriend, Meet Cute Club, Neon Gods, It's Okay to Feel Things Deeply, The Bear and the Nightingale, Twisted Hearts, and a manga called Love That's an Understatement. So I kicked off May with Neon Gods by Katie Roberts, and this one I only rated 3 out of 5. Hades was probably my favourite character, but I found the book kind of confusing because obviously Neon Gods. I'm assuming there was going to be gods in it. There was vague references to magic in it, like with the barrier separating kind of the two towns kind of thing. But apart from that, there was no other real mention of magic. So is it a fantasy? Is it not a fantasy? I'm not entirely sure. Um, Even though I said Hades was my favourite character, none of the characters really stood out to me at all. Like Hades was probably the best out of a lot of them, to be honest, but all the others just didn't really do it for me, to be honest. Um, it was okay. I thought it was going to be a really dark, spicy, kind of like magical romance, and it didn't really deliver on any of that for me personally. It wasn't particularly dark. It wasn't that spicy, and like I say, I was expecting there to be more kind of fantasy element to it, which was just missing. Not that it was marketed that way, just that was my impression of what it was going to be. But it just didn't deliver for me, and I don't think I'll continue the series. Next up, probably, if not like my favourite read from this month, was the manga Love That's an Understatement. This was actually an advanced copy that I found on NetGalley, and it was amazing. It was just so cute. You've kind of got this girl who seems like she's kind of got all her life together. Like, if you need a band-aid, she's got you covered. Like, all this kind of thing. She's got everything she ever needs to kind of get through in daily life. And then she ends up meeting this boy who's been beat up and offers him a band-aid and things like that. And then he kind of feels like indebted to her, and he's always there to then like help her out, like when she gets in trouble and all that kind of stuff. And it was a super sweet romance. The characters, we got enough background information that I kind of understood their personalities and why they are the way that they are, and there was enough development in there. Because obviously mangas are quite short, because not only developing a story, you've got all the artwork there as well. So they're always they're too short in my opinion, but I understand the reasons why. But there was enough information there that got me hooked on those characters like in an instant. So that was instantly just like top of the list read for me. Next up was an audiobook called Meet Cute Club, and I only rated this one 3 out of 5. I really did like our main characters, Jordan and Rex, and I love that the book was centered around like a book club. I thought that was really cute, and I thought it was a nice kind of nice setting for the story. What kind of took away from me was it was quite short, so I didn't actually get to know Jordan and Rex as much as I wanted to. I got little insights into their backgrounds and their personalities and why they are the way that they are, but I just feel like there was so much left unsaid. I feel like there was a lot of them that we didn't get to see, so that's why I kind of knocked it down a little bit. There was just a little bit missing for me. There was a really good quote that I'm pretty sure all of us can relate to, and it's, "Why live in the real world when I can be around much more interesting people in these books?" And that is literally me to the core. If I'm given the choice between a social situation or staying home and reading books, I'm staying home and reading the books. That's just that's just me through and through. So that was Meet Cute Club, and I did enjoy it. I just wish I'd gotten to see more up from Jordan and Rex. Next up was It's Okay to Feel Things Deeply, to Feel Things Deeply. This one I kind of just found randomly, and I thought I'd kind of give it a shot. I rated it 3 out of 5. It wasn't bad. Just a really short book with lots of cute hand-drawn illustrations and just kind of little snippets of like little positive affirmations, that kind of thing. So it was super short, not a lot of content to it at all, but it was full of just like positive vibes. It's one of those ones that if you ever needed like a little pick me up, if you'd had kind of a bad day or whatever, you could just kind of open it to a random page and just get like a little bit of inspiration and just kind of boost up your mood a little bit. So super short, but was worth the read, but definitely not 5-star worthy. Next up was actually another audiobook. I've been getting better with my audiobooks as the year's going on, and it was called Rent a Boyfriend by Gloria Chow. This one was another 3 out of 5. Everything was a bit kind of mid-ground for me. Drew was definitely my favourite character. So the premise of Rent a Boyfriend is basically, as it says, if you're in need of need a boyfriend or something for like a family event or something like that, you can use their service and you can rent a boyfriend for like the weekend, the day, or something like that. So our main character is getting hounded by her parents to date this guy who's an utter scumbag, even though they can't see it. So she enlists the help of a rent a boyfriend called Drew, and he's like so far away from what her parents want. Her parents want her to marry like a rich man who's got lots of money, who can support her and look after her, hence why they're trying to set her up with this pure scumbag. But she's like, I don't want to do that, but at the same time she's got this like familial pressure to do what her parents want. So she lies and says that she's got a boyfriend who's well-to-do, got good money, good prospects, he's going to have a good job, he's going to be a doctor and all that kind of thing. And she doesn't. And then it comes time for like Thanksgiving, and they're like, hey, bring the boyfriend. So she hires Drew to come and spend Thanksgiving with her family as her boyfriend. And a little bit of the fake dating trope, you can't beat it for me. It's one of my weaknesses. It was I really liked the premise of it, but I felt like there was parts of it that just dragged. Some of it was great, but some of it just went on, and it could have just been a little bit shorter. I don't know if maybe it's because I was doing it in audio format, even though I literally listened at like double speed. But there was just some parts I kind of found myself not being interested in. It just felt like a lot of stuff was kind of repeating and just the kind of same thing over and over and over again. Whereas I felt we could have sped through some of it and then got to the meat of the story about like the scumbag that her parents were trying to set her up with, and why Drew's doing what he does and that kind of thing. That was the stuff I found interesting more than the mundane everyday stuff. But it might be up your alley. Just give it a try. It really was really good, and maybe a bit different experience if I'd read it rather than listen to the audiobook, even though the ones reading the audiobook were really good. Next up was another advanced copy, and this was Twisted Hearts. This one, 2.5. I was probably being generous with a 0.5, to be honest. It was okay. What I thought I was getting into was a spicy motorcycle gang romance kind of thing, and it's not quite what I got. Definitely wasn't as spicy as was promised and as marketed. The plot was really lacking. It's from the kind of synopsis of it, it sounded like there was going to be quite a decent story there, but then it wasn't in the book. There was so much more they could have done with it, especially with like the rival gang member and things that's causing the problems and things. And one of the main hang-ups I had with it, there was no chemistry between the girl and the guys from the motorcycle club. Like she sees him doing something horrendous, and then all of a sudden she's like, yep, you're the guys I want, like even though they literally threaten her, she's like, nah, I'm just going to willingly go to your club pub thing, and yeah, I'm just going to be all hot and bothered in front of you. And I'm like, but why though? So I didn't really get the main woman's motivations behind why she was all of a sudden just attracted to these guys. Don't know, maybe it was just me, maybe it just wasn't for me, but there was just no chemistry between them at all. I did not understand her motivations for being interested in them at all. But apparently she was just wasn't my cup of tea. It just really missed the mark for me. Next up is probably going to be a controversial opinion here. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I know whenever this came out, it was everybody and their auntie loved it. All the reviews were always amazing, 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 amazing. For me, it was okay. The writing style, like the way that V. Schwab writes, is beautiful. Like, can't argue with that. The way it's written, the descriptions of the people and the places is very beautiful, 100%. What I didn't like is the way that the story was told. Now, I get that we're getting like Addie's background, so things are told out of order, they're not chronological, which is fine. Books don't have to always be in chronological order. However, there has to be some sort of sense to it. Like, for example, coming up for the end of the book, we were at a very pivotal scene with Addie, and the scene kept on getting interrupted to have flashbacks to something that happened 200 years ago, which really broke the flow for me, because I ended up not having the same like anticipation for what was going to happen in this scene, because we were building up to like a really big climax in the book, and then it was like, oh no, let's go back and see what something that happened 150 years ago that's not actually related to this and doesn't give you any more information on what's going to happen. And then we would come back and the scene would start building up again, and then boom, we're back to like 20 years ago for another situation that's not even related. So that wasn't my favourite storytelling method, and I felt like a lot of it was repetitive. Like, I get that for Addie, her life has been incredibly monotonous. She's been living for all these years, and she's obviously the girl that nobody remembers, so she has just had this monotonous life for the most part, because obviously nobody can remember her. So it's the same thing every time, like new faces, and well, for her it's the same faces, but for other people she's new and things. But just, I didn't like the way that the story was told. The story itself wasn't bad, I just don't like how it was told. I don't feel like, for example, one of the pet peeves is if we'd had to see that she had been forced to be light fingered one more time. It was just too much. Like, we get it, she's had to steal to survive. We get it, she doesn't like it, but that's how she's had to survive for all these years, stealing and things. It was just too monotonous as a reader. I get it that that's how Addie's lived her life. It's not what I wanted from the book. But apart from that, the story itself was great. Didn't like the ending. I felt like that was weirdly forced, and I don't understand. I don't obviously don't want to spoil it. I mean, I'm assuming everybody else has probably read it apart from me by now, but I just don't understand Addie's motivation for the ending. I just don't think that that's how it should have ended. I think it should have been different, but I think it was building up to something different, and it was a little bit of a cop out, but that's just me personally. And I finished May on a really good note. I finished with The Bear and the Nightingale. I'm going to apologise in advance because I'm probably going to butcher some of these names. I read this with my little book club, and thankfully one of my friends is very good at pronouncing these names, so every time we're talking about it I just kind of start off a name and get her to finish it for me. So the whole book is mainly focused around Vazia. I'm trying my best. And for me, this book was slow paced, but in a good way. Normally I'm not a fan of books that are slow paced. I like to be entertained. Like, I need something happening all the time. But with this one, it was slow paced, but it didn't feel like it. It was so wonderful getting to see Vazia's life at all these key crucial moments, from like before she was born right through to where we leave off at the end of this book, obviously before the next two kind of thing. So there's all these pivotal moments in our life and all these things that happen to her that just, it was so wonderful that it was so slow paced, that we get to see so much of her personality and how much she has had to change. So for the premise of The Bear and the Nightingale, basically she lives in like this little kind of like Russian town way back when, and all of her town still believe in like the old gods, and no one can see them except for like Vazia, and she has like magical heritage from her mother's side and things. And her mother passes away. She gets a stepmother who can also see them, but who is like a devout Christian and like refuses to acknowledge the existence of these old gods and the spirits and things that she can see. And a new priest comes to their town, and he literally puts the fear of God in them and makes them not want to worship the old gods anymore. And of course that brings disaster. And we see all these pivotal moments of like Vasya realizing that she can see these things, and when she's young she talks about them freely, but as she gets older she realizes that not everyone can see them or believe in them or understand them or anything like that, and it's her faith in them that kind of keeps them alive and things like that. And it's a wonderfully spun tale. It honestly just reads like its own fairy tale. I know it's based off other mythologies and things, but it reads like it's its own fairy tale. The writing was lovely, it was really nicely written, and like I said, despite being a slow paced book, it was also so interesting that I kind of forgot how slow paced it was. This one book traverses all these years, literally from her being a little girl up to, I think she's like 16 or 17, something like that, at the end of this book. But you can't believe that that much time has passed throughout the book. So that was definitely one of my highlight reads for this year. So overall for me, we had a couple of good ones. Like my manga that I read was really good, and The Bear and the Nightingale was amazing. Apart from that, everything else was kind of mid-level. A lot of threes this month for me. So a lot of 3-star reads in there. So hopefully we can get some higher rated books. So thank you so much for joining me on my little reading journey today. I hope you have the most wonderful day. Bye.